Well, howdy, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bears of a Certain Age. We are back in studio today. Jonny, how the heck are you, buddy?
I am good. I have to say, it is not as freaking hot as it has been. And I will take it. I will. It's like, you feel like we're in transition for about a month and a half. You know
I
what I
went
mean?
to Akron, had their Pride festivals last weekend. I went to Akron Pride Festival. It was 82 degrees out, which everyone thought was
That's
warm. And after my 5 weeks in Palm Springs, it was like I
right.
was in a cool bath. It was
Yes.
wonderful. Yeah,
82 is perfect
I
after being all in that. We've been in the 90s. We're still in the high 90s. But this week we had a lot of rain. And the mornings when I take my dog out, it makes it super cold. But then the day is, I love it. I love it. Like, if I could have the world exist in spring and fall, I would be in heaven. Those are my two favorite. I will deal with summer, but don't even talk to me about that W word.
Exactly. Yes. It's
Yeah.
90s here, the next 93 the next 2 days, then it cools down again. I posted about that. Fall is my favorite time too, and I actually posted on social the other day. There's two little spots in my trees in the backyard that have brown leaves on them. Like of all these
Wow.
huge trees, there's two little spots. I was all excited. I circled them and put them on social media. It's like fall is here, damn it.
those those are the early achievers. Those
Right.
leaves.
This
I
is my
like to talk.
favorite time of year. It's corn season, so all the corn is like fully matured now. We get all this fresh corn
Right.
that's all over Ohio. The hay bales, you go to the fruit farm. Apple season at the White House fruit farms. You can pick your own apples and make
I love
applesauce.
that.
And I love fall. It's just so
Yeah,
amazing.
we have a place, they call it Green Acres. It's about, I don't know, it's 20 minutes from Spokane. And so it has all of the farms, and you can get your pumpkin spice and go to the
Right.
pumpkin patch. I do have to say, now that I work in dentistry, speaking of corn, I did an event this Saturday where I was out and about, and I was talking to a lot of people. And I can't tell you how many stories I got from people who are probably late 60s, early 70s, who would tell me stories about, I was just jumping into my favorite thing, just an ear of corn, and my tooth came right out with it. And I was like, shit. Is this our future? Apparently, our teeth get brittle, so everybody be careful out there. Watch your apples, watch your corn.
But thank them for sharing. That's so nice.
Bears got the best of me. I said, bears on my fantasy. I said, bears ain't what I like. We do it all night, alright. Bears that don't discriminate. I take a cover chop to circumnavigate. Steal my heart and let it percolate all night, alright. Bears got the best of me. I said, bears on my fantasy. I said, bears ain't what I like. We do it all night, alright. Bears.
Yeah, he's like, I learned that older people have a lot of stories, and if you are captive at a table, they're going to tell you all of
Yes,
them.
exactly.
And because we had free stuff at our table, I also found out that it seemed to be the elderly women. They're like free stuff. They act like they're shopping. They get their bag out. They're talking to you, but they're taking everything. I
Right.
told my cohort, I'm like, be careful. They're going to tip the table and put everything in their bag.
I
And we're
love.
not going to stop them, but you try to distract them.
Well, speaking of talking to older people, as us bears of a certain age, I had to
Yes.
look at my 401k the other day, and that's always scary. And it kind of
Mm-hmm.
we were talking off air, and it's time to start talking. I mean, it's you always think of it because November's when you start seeing all those frickin' commercials for pick your health
Yeah,
care, and you
I
start
know.
thinking
Oh,
retirement and health care and all the other stuff. And I'm not in as good a shape as I thought I was since I've been taking a lot of time off work the last 5 years. My Social Security has gone down a lot.
right? My own mother, who is getting closer to 80, she's in her late 70s, she has to work part time.
Hmm.
I'm like, she has, my dad's life insurance from when he passed. She has Social Security, but it's not enough. And I have to tell you this. So, did you know that retirement age in 1991 was 57? And now, of course, it's 64. And
Right.
then they expect it to just keep chugging along. And I'm like, and I already knew that I either need to make one big thing, give me a lot of money, or I have to die like scanning people's teeth in the dental chair. Because there's no way. And I have not ever been smart about money.
Right.
And because I'm an artist, I'm a starving artist. And listen, people, if you're listening, it's nothing to be proud of. So try to be a smart artist. But because, I was kicked out of my house and blah, 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 growing up and when I came out and everything. So I never was prepared. And so every time I would leave a job, if I had a 401k, I would have to cash it out to get through and then I'd get a 401k again. If I left that job, I would cash it out. My most recent transition to dentistry, I had to cash out the last 401k to make sure I could survive. So I'm screwed. So send all of my mail to a van down by the river. I mean, that's where, and
That's
I really think
like, I just almost tear up whenever I see like 70, 80-year-old women as hostesses at restaurants and stuff. And it makes me so sad. It's like, I'm probably going to be that person.
right. Which is why you and I are back in the dating scene, so we can find someone to take care of us.
Right.
When we're older. Right? Oh, I make sure my nieces and nephews love me so much, just in case. Just in case. But also, did you know that Medicare will not cover assisted living as an actual, like, I'm going to sail into the sunset? They will only cover 100 days of assisted living. And I don't think a lot of people realize that's why all of these states are pushing that later care in life. You can buy supplemental. And some states like Washington, it was a huge controversy, is making you buy it. And so you have two options, but because they know it's coming, and there's a lot of us not prepared, they're making that part of either you do it or you do this other option, and there's a lot of states doing that. I think someone is looking ahead going, oh crap, our citizens, we don't take care of them, so we better make sure they take care of themselves.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, well,
it's
like
terrifying.
Medicare, I think, to get full benefits now, it's 67. It used to be 65. Now it's 67.
Right.
And of course, Republicans want to make it up even higher. And
right.
It's like, and I understand the solvency and everything, but there's got to be other issues around it that don't include.
And don't you think, I believe firmly, and I didn't look up the stats on this, but I believe firmly there's probably more of us than less of us that are in this position. Because they say most people will live after retirement 20 years, so 2 decades or a little more, with the way elderly are living right now. And they say if you're going to live that way, you need $200,000 in savings to go with your Social Security. And I'm like, say what? What was that? Where's my one-hit wonder? Because I need that in my life. But don't you think, when we were talking about this, I think there's probably a lot of bears of a certain age that this is, what we have to think about it at some point. You can ignore it. And listen, guys, those guys that are going to comment, because I've had them before, and be like, oh, what are you talking about? I have all of my stuff together. Well, good for you, first of all. Congratulations. The world isn't all about you. So there are a bunch of people who don't. And that's I think it's just to be aware is probably good. So I'm going to find myself a sugar daddy who's like 93 and give him what he wants. He's not going to remember if I don't, but you know what I mean? And then make sure I'm in the will. And I'm going to Anna Nicole that shit. That's what
I love that. That's a good plan to have.
It's the only way.
And it really is. You see both of the spectrums. I mean, you see guys that are very well off because they haven't had the kids and everything. Or they got couples that got married earlier, gay couples that have been together for a long time that have had those 2 incomes, no kids and everything, and have played it smart. But as you said, you were never really taught that very well. I mean, I just saw an ad the other day. I think I'm very impressed. I think it's the company Intuit. It owns like QuickBooks and all these other things are starting to do a class in school now for kids. Which they've needed forever because they just don't teach financial strength.
And it's funny, anytime a school starts doing things that have to do with financial planning, or like there's a school here in Spokane 20 years ago who their whole basement was turned into a town, and you would get a job, and you would manage money young, and they are controversial. Why? Why? Just because you're jealous because no one taught you what credit card debt was going to do to your retirement? I mean, it's going to screw you over. So I don't begrudge people who were smart or even people who accidentally did good.
Yeah.
Listen, good for you. I'm saying, first of all, not my experience and not everybody's experience. Because do you know that as of May 2024, which was just this past May, they did a study, and you can see I'm looking at my notes over here. Social Security, as of May 2024, is only $23,000 a year. So, if you want to live on ramen, which will kill you faster, that's just not feasible. You know what I mean? But we knew it was going to dwindle.
Like once a year or whatever that tells you how much you're going to make. Do you look at that thing?
Yeah. I have not looked at it, but I heard about it.
Mine started at like $1,300 a month, and now I think it's down to like $780 a month or something because I haven't worked that much the last 6 years.
Right.
And it's
and then mine, I'm sure, says
if I stay to the 67, if I decide to do it 65, then it's like 680. If I decide to do 62, it's like 5 something. It's like
mine is like your only option is you need to be able to survive on $5 a month. That's my only option. And I don't get to take a break. Well, and then look at companies don't do pensions anymore. In England they call them pensioners because that is not the job market anymore. It's a nomadic job market. It's been a nomadic job market probably since the 80s, early 80s, because we see jobs differently. And I think we should see jobs differently. But no one stays at a job long enough to have a pension if there is one. And then, of course, corporations don't want to do pensions. So they do. That's why we moved to 401ks. Right. It's more about investment. We're going to take part of your money and do all that. But the fact is we never solved the problem. And so we get a lot of people, they've started spouting take care of yourself. Why are you trying to live on the state? That's not what it's about. So it's fascinating. So I would be curious to hear from the people who it is working for. If you're a bear out there and you were smart, congratulations. Do you have tips for the rest of us? If you're a bear and you're concerned, I'd love to hear what your concerns are. I mean, this is a real conversation for men like us, for anybody at our age, but especially for the bears, I'm curious. But something else that's interesting is I was thinking about tribes. We are in a very close tribe. The bears are very wonderful and they tend to have a close-knit tribe. And I wonder if there is, I know you can go to retirement communities that are gay-centric and bear-centric. And I wonder if there's a way to, monetize our tribes in some way when it comes to retirement. I'm just curious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be interesting to kind of look into. I think even in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about different leisure things to do and about that a little more.
Exactly.
But I think as far as the financing of it, I think it's real important. We've talked in the past about some retirement, higher end at $8,000 a month.
Oh, yeah. I talk about that place all the time.
Yeah.
I just mentioned that place today. I was like, hey, I do want to end up in Palm Springs. I don't know how I'm making $8,000 a month, but it sounds great. Exactly. And it's all, but I would be interested in what are, some of you have successfully, do you know who I'm really jealous of? Those that have successfully have a home wherever they live and a home in Palm Springs. And I'm like, you're winning at life. And I want to know how you did that. But at the same time, just real talk. Let's just share with each other kind of how we got there. My problem is I'm never a hopeless man. I always believe in hope. And so I'm just curious. I need to be better. But that's okay. We can all be better at something. Mine just happens to be better at not dying of being poor. But, but I am curious about
lots of people, like you said, it just, there's not those 401ks anymore. The entire economy is speaking of health savings accounts now instead of actual health care for a lot of places.
Right.
So the entire different economy is changing in a lot of different ways than it was before. I mean, thank goodness my parents got back in the day the Medicare plus the all-inclusive AARP insurance. They don't pay anything out of pocket for insurance, but I have some of my mom's friends at 85, 84 years old that they're still paying 20% of $8 jillion to go have a small procedure done. I mean,
Exactly, which is terrifying, honestly. Which is why
yeah,
everybody go out and vote for Kamala Harris. And then this has all been a commercial. You didn't know it, but it's all
exactly
been a
right.
commercial for that. But I just don't think we talk enough fully. And if I'm going to talk about retirement, I would rather talk to my peers. And for me, that is bears of a certain age. I would much rather. But remember when it used to be the new thing, probably 20 years ago, but you could have a retirement community that was queer centered, that was
Right.
LGBT focused, and that was huge. Like that was like, oh my God, that exists. So now I'm just curious on what that next step. There's lots of fun that can be had in retirement, but you have to first successfully retire,
Right.
and that's the problem.
We had money in the stock market for quite a while, but it's a literal gamble. You don't know how you're going to do it
Yeah,
all. We tried to keep it to just things that made actual dividends, but it's
right.
obviously your tech capital went up and down. So that was a little different. I mean, honestly, we got really lucky that my dad was a smart bank. He was a banking for 20 something years. So he was smart
Yeah,
as far as investments. If it wasn't for him, we would have gone through our money a long time ago here.
right.
But it's like, luckily he was a smart man, so we were able to have the house paid for just from the way it was done. So the house is always paid for, which is good. And then he's
Oh
always
yeah.
a little bit of saving, but
Well,
it's
first thing when my dad died, we told my mom you need to pay that mortgage down as far as you can pay it, so that it is not something that's hanging over your head. So the house is paid off because that goal. I was so young. That goal was mom. How do we make sure mom's gonna be okay? And she's still in the house that we all went to high school in.
right.
That she was with dad, but that I am my father's child. My dad was a passionate creative minister who made no money, and I am a passionate creative creator who makes no money. So so it's just something that we need to be mindful of. Don't let yourself go down the depression rabbit hole, but be aware, and then maybe see what's out there. How do you?
Yes.
It's why every job I go to, I'm like, how can I make them love me so much that I can go up the scale? You know what I mean? To at least
I'm
make good
probably
money.
in the lowest point of savings that I've ever been in right now, and
Scary?
it's very scary. So it's like you have that cushion. I've had that cushion for a long time, and the cushion
Right?
is not there anymore. So you really have to really pay attention to what you do.
Well, you are studying right now. When you look at things, how do you see the next 20 years?
I'm
You're on
so
the
bad.
couch and I'm the therapist.
Yeah, I'm so bad at it that I don't think in those terms. Unfortunately, I think of the next 20 minutes, right? So it's like instead
Exactly.
of 20 years. So it's very difficult. Um, we have a certain amount set aside that we kind of thought that'll be our emergency money if we ever
Right.
need it. Well, hello, the fire alarm's going off all of a sudden
Yeah. You're
because
like, I legally changed my name to emergency.
exactly right. So
And here we go.
I just need to pay. Like we talked about this a lot in Palm Springs when you and I were there, and I was talking to a lot of the guests down there. Like I would love to be able to retire and move to Palm Springs, but the cost of
Hallelujah.
living is just impossible to do that. So I have to look at what I'm going to do for the home here. Do I want to get a roommate? Do I want to
Right.
get? Do I want to sell and go to a smaller place? There's lots of
Yeah.
options out there, but that's a bad way to plan your next 20 years. Like
Yeah. And it
sell this and
didn't
sell.
used to have to be that way,
It's
but
not
I can tell you,
proactive. It's totally reactive.
yeah, I know a lot of retirees who do that. They sublet rooms in their home. I actually even know a young couple that just bought their first house. So excited for them, but they have to have roommates. They have two kids and them two, and the only way to afford that mortgage is to put. Now, I will say we have to, I think as a society, we have to stop putting a band aid on a hemorrhage.
Right.
So, we have to address the cost of living. It's out of hand. It is people who are opportunistic corporations who, when COVID hit, they found, oh, I can charge more for this because it is not the supply chain as it used to be.
Right.
It's not as so. None of us want to hear that anymore. Let's be realistic. So I also think, as much as it is on us as individuals to make sure we take care of ourselves, if there is something that needs to be done higher up that is going to address those things. I'm not saying I might have heard someone have a plan to address those very things. I'm not saying. Again, Harris 2025.
There you go. I'm wearing my blue.
But
I'm all about the blue.
right? We have to do, but I think a lot of us are at that point where we're like, oh, not where I thought I'd be. You know what I mean?
And there's lots of things
someone
we can do too. I mean, I was looking at it. I try to do a little checklist when I can on different things, and it's less to check every time. But I do try to check and see what my contributions are. Can I afford to do 1% to savings or something of my income? Can I put so much away for this? I'm a good at. I've learned how to. I'm a discounter. I mean, I've always been a cheap ass bastard, I guess, to some extent. But I've learned to kind of work the system a little more.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you have it where you're at. Most states do, where you have different grocery stores that give you points towards gas and things like that.
Oh, hell yes. Yes.
Well, I've kind of worked that to the extreme where if I know I'm going to go buy groceries, I'll go buy two $50 gift cards for groceries, and that'll give me 20 cents off a gallon of gas, and I'll use that to pay for the groceries.
Well, and remember how we all used to make fun of that show about extreme couponers? Now we need to go get that show out again and study it like we're in college. Because those people knew what they were doing. I think, and the other way is I think that you have a good balance, though. You knew how to let yourself have a trip, right? You didn't have to, you did it so well, and yet also, though, you go home and you have to like tighten up things. I feel like we should be able to do those things. And so I'm fascinated. Did you get to talk to, is it Three Bears in a Pod? That podcast?
I talked to
I'm curious of getting there. And so Three Bears in a Pod, if you're listening, I would love to get their take on, kind of what they do and what they did. And you know what I mean? Because they're very interesting to listen to anyways. I really like those guys.
I love
but I bet they have opinions.
One bear is hibernating. So they're down to two
bears. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I'm glad he's just hibernating. Because, at our age, when you say there's just two bears now, you're like, oh no.
Exactly. And I think maybe in the next couple episodes we'll bring on my friends, the Debt-Free Guys, that are two great LGBTQ financial planners based here in Toledo, and they have some great strategies for that for different.
What a good idea! That would be amazing. Do you know who else I want on here, which is kind of the opposite extreme? You know that question mark guy? He's all over TikTok now, but back in our day, he had infomercials. He has suits and he has question marks all over them, and he's crazy. He's doing really well on TikTok right now, and he does lives all the time, and I love listening to him. We need to get him on the show.
Oh, that would be fun.
So he can do the opposite of thinking, balanced.
There you go.
He's so smart. I want him on the show. I'll have Kurt reach out, because I think that would be
guys,
fun.
If you're listening, and question mark guy, if you're listening, we're going to be reaching out soon.
We need y'all. We need y'all. We should do every few months a little financial thing. You know what I mean? Because it definitely, it's for our age group.
Right. We should be reviewing our budget. I mean, just an hour a month or so. Check your budget over. Check your credit report to make sure your credit report is accurate and see whether that gets.
I watch my credit like a hawk, which is not good because every day it fluctuates really. So if you do that, you just put yourself through anxiety when that's not. Yeah. It would be better if I looked every 30 days because I pay my bills. I actually take pride in paying my bills. Every time I pay rent, I'm so happy because I get a roof over my head, for another month. Because back in the day, I had a car roof over my head for, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Right. So that's always important to me to know, okay, I've covered everything I need that makes me happy in life. But I always feel this way too. You know how with goldfish, they grow to the size of their pond, whatever case they're in. I find that happens a lot with our money. Something in the back of our head is making sure most of the time that you won't go over that. But that's not smart to just rely on that, because it's making sure if you make more money, well, we're going to spend more money. And if we make less money, we'll make it there. But so I don't think the goldfish strategy in finances is good, but I have always found I have enough money to get everything in that month taken care of. And I really do think that's another side of my brain that's just watching it. But I want to be a goldfish that's tiny in a gigantic pond of money. That's what
There
I
you
want.
go. Exactly. Yeah, and like I said, credit reports, I pay attention to mine, but you have to be careful of fluctuation because the way
Yeah,
I do mine is I will pay for everything on credit card because, like I said, I like to get the bonus money at the end of
exactly.
the 3% back
Yep.
or whatever. So I'll put everything on credit card, but then I'll pay the entire amount off each month. But it makes your credit score go down like this while you're spending.
Yeah.
And you paid off,
Yep.
it goes like this for a little bit.
Yes. It's
It's
like this
crazy.
dip. It's like there's a pothole, but it comes back, and honestly, it comes back stronger.
Usually,
90% of the time. But if you're married, it's kind of like people who get on the scale every day. That's not an accurate look.
exactly.
So it's a great way to be depressed. I think of the same way financially. I also could never play the stock market because if someone sneezes in India, that stock market went its own way. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I think,
we finally got out of the stock market. Like I said, we used to do it, but we just did dividends only. We don't
yeah,
do that anymore. We are very lucky that my dad invested in some I bonds back in the day.
nice.
It's been a great investment. That's about the only thing we have that, in case anything ever goes wrong, we can get into an I bond.
Right.
But that's not a great strategy to have either.
Those are short term, like they help until you use them, and then what are we gonna do?
Exactly.
Yeah,
They're gone. And then they're
yeah.
taxed then too. You don't tax them until you use them. So it's like,
That's the worst. Like if you cash, like I had to do, if you cash out your 401k, it's taxed because you're doing it early. So
right.
all that money you saved, you're only getting a bit of it. You know what I mean? And then you're like, that's never fun. I know no one wants to talk finance because it's not necessarily super fun, but I do think it's important for us to begin that conversation, which is why we want to hear from all of you. Like, what are you doing? What are your tricks? Scott and I are committed to, getting these other people on to talk about it now and then. Not every time. We need to have fun. But we do want them because I think it's important, and we need to remember, as the new thing to say is we need to remember to be demure and mindful, as that
Demure.
TikToker says. Yes,
There you go.
it's very demure and very
Very
mindful.
demure. Talking finances is demure these days. I love that.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I think it's
Any,
like we've tried to talk about these every couple of months. We'll talk about these things. I think they are important. I think you have to pay
yeah,
attention to them, and things change so much. So I think it's a good
yeah,
thing to talk about and to make you think about because I will not necessarily think about it until I talk about it.
no.
Right?
No, and I'm not gonna because I'm gonna be like, but I need lighting. I need lighting for the studio. It's like, John, maybe later, maybe save up for that. But
Right.
yeah, I think it's important. I also think it's important not to take away your joy in life. So you kind of balance. Gotta balance it. But we do want to hear from you. Please send us an email on podcastbears@gmail.com. Put a comment down because I know a lot of you have these same thoughts. Maybe you've had these same conversations. If you have a podcast, if you're financial, people like we've mentioned here, I just want to know what's your strategy as you move forward. Because we can learn from each other, and Jonny needs to. So, so
Exactly. I
let's.
mean, I'd love to hear how you do. I mean, there's people that have, and we'll talk eventually about retirement as well, because what do you do with that money if you have no kids?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
if there's organizations that you want to leave things to, if you do happen to be blessed
exactly.
with money. I mean, I think there's lots of things that we can talk about. And this is a fun show. We like to talk about just lifestyle and what's going
Yeah,
on. But I think we do need to educate a little bit and talk about some real things from occasion time to time. So
yeah.
I think it's important that we
So,
share different people's philosophies. So we'd love to hear from you what's going on, and
yeah.
I think it's a great topic.
And then in a year, if you see that Scott and I are always like in Maui or something, then you'll know it worked. So that is a challenge. Well, and you know us, we love to be silly. We love to do the lives with you guys, and we love to have fun, other types of shows. So keep tuning in, but we do want to hear all the serious questions. And, next time you tune in, it'll be just something fun. So I love it. I love this conversation. This nerds my
I
head out, and
do
I love it.
too.
Yeah.
Well, happy retirement, everybody. We will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. I think we'll be talking about a little bit of leisure, and that will be a little fun to talk
Yes.
about next time. So we'll be doing that. And be sure to check us next Monday. We'll be live on Instagram at Bears of a Certain Age and either a Queer Centric or Left of Straight. So look for that conversation. You can always hit the join button and talk with us live.
Exactly. We love
That's
that.
always fun, right?
And until next time, always stay demure and always stay mindful.
Demure it is. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Jonny.
Bye. Bye.
Bears got the best of me. I said bears on my fantasy. I said bears into what I like. We do it all night, all right. Bears that don't discriminate. I take a carbon chop to circumnavigate. Steal my heart and let it percolate all night.